Hello and welcome to the Customer Success Playbook Podcast, where we're passionate about elevating your customer success game. I'm Trebon, along with my co-host Kevin Metzger. Don't forget, for a deep dive into our past episodes, videos, articles, and more, check us out at customersuccessplaybook.ai. And remember to like, share, subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channel. We're committed to bringing you the latest insights and expertise from the industry's best minds. Kevin, happy Friday. How are you doing today?
Happy Friday, Roman. Doing great. Very excited to get started with today's topic. In today's episode, we're going to dive into strategies for elevating and enhancing customer onboarding and success. We'll explore the critical components of building a successful onboarding process that not only enhances customer experience, but also drives retention and growth. We'll talk about the importance of proactive and comprehensive approach, covering everything from customer education, training, and beyond. Roman, I think it's going to be a great show today.
And we have a great guest. We're joined, Kevin. I say we're about to be joined. We actually are joined with Melissa Caldwell, Vice President of Customer Onboarding and Success at Fluxx. Kevin, she has an extensive background as a senior leader in customer experience and customer success, and she's been instrumental in developing global customer success organizations. Her approach, which she's going to share with us, encompasses the entire customer journey from implementation to advocacy, with a passion for metrics and empathetic leadership. Melissa, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Really happy to be here.
Yeah. So for our audience who may not know, tell us a little bit about what Fluxx does and a little bit of background about how long you've been there and then kind of what was the state of customer success and onboarding when you first joined.
Sure. So Fluxx is a SaaS platform that is a grants management platform. So we work with, funders in the grant space, the philanthropy sector primarily, working with some government agencies as well. But it's a really great space to be in, doing some really awesome things out there in the world, helping to facilitate the funding of some really fantastic projects. I have been with Fluxx for about a year and a half. I came in here, really to transform the way things were working in the organization. And it's just been a fantastic experience. Digging deep hasn't been easy, but it's been a lot of fun, and we've seen some really great success along the way.
That's awesome. Well, we're excited to get into this. So, Kev, I'll let you kind of lead with the first question, but I always feel like the topic today, as Kevin said, is onboarding, and I feel like onboarding is kind of like, it's like that stage from like when you get engaged until like the wedding day, where like, you get the engagement, everyone's super happy, right? And then, and then you start, who's going to get invited? Like, what kind of invites do we have? And things can kind of like get real rough during that patch. And you hope you have that you get to that wedding day and you have like the long-term great relationship. So I feel like, I don't know, I've been thinking about that a lot lately because we got invited to a wedding and it's onboarding's, key for us right now. Kev, I'll let you start with kind of the question from Melissa.
Yeah, well, I like the analogy. You got all the sales part is all the courting and all the dating.
That's right.
Then you move into onboarding. It's engagement and wedding. But so along those lines, so how can you kind of tell us what the general process is for onboarding at Fluxx and kind of what your focus is when you start with onboarding? So what's kind of your first major goal that you're trying to achieve?
Yeah, so I think from an onboarding perspective for us, it was really about focusing on a more efficient and effective onboarding so that we could get our customers to a quicker time to value. And that's the thing I've been really preaching to our teams, is that time to value and, taking that customer experience into consideration, but also marrying that very closely with, again, an efficient process so that we're providing a better experience for the customer, number one, but number two, we're also protecting our own margins and, utilization of our team and things like that. So that's really the thing we tend to key in on primarily.
And how long is onboarding journey for someone that's coming onto the Fluxx platform?
Yeah, it can really vary. So one of the things that I implemented over the course of the last year was a more structured, best practice-based onboarding process where we've put 4 kind of bundles, we call them, together for onboarding that vary from a, kind of what we call our quick start approach, which can be probably 4 to 6 weeks. And then we go all the way up to, some of our most complex onboardings where we're really helping a customer transform what they're doing can last, up to a year, honestly. So it's a really, wide time frame as far as what's possible. But what we do is we make a real concerted effort to get detailed with the customer early on in the process so that we have a really clear understanding of which of those packages will best fit their needs.
And do any of those packages have like an automated process versus a human-led process?
Nothing's 100% automated. We have a very configurable platform. So even with our quick start package, which is really just our standard, again, best practice template, we still have some things that we like to work through with the customer to tweak and tune it a little bit to make sure it's genuinely meeting their needs.
Yeah. And do you do any in product? Sorry, Rob. Do you do any in product kind of training or guidance with the customer?
We do some. We deliver some messaging in product through Pendo, which is integrated into our platform. So, we try to make it as user-friendly as possible for our customers to be able to navigate on their own to get the help that they need. But the way we're structured is that our onboarding process is, very hands-on, and we have a lot of training resources, which we're actually, really working on beefing up our training program right now as well.
And Melissa, were those bundles in place a year and a half ago when you came in? What was the experience like? If I was a Fluxx customer coming in 2 years ago, how would that look different than having maybe these tailored packages that are in place now?
Yeah, that's a great question. The issue then was that we were really trying to apply a kind of one-size-fits-all approach to all of our customers, and it was very process heavy. So it just wasn't scalable at all because we were trying to apply the exact same process, the templates, the same number of resources for everything from a very simple to a very large and complex implementation. So, we would just sit down with the customer and basically say, what do you need? And apply our process to getting us there. Yep. And the big change was this shift to, really being best practice led. After we've done hundreds of these implementations, we clearly know how to get the customer started off really strong and then just personalize, where it makes sense to really meet their needs.
Yeah, that makes sense. And how did you give us a little bit, if you can, kind of the process to go from that one size fits all approach to get to like the bundles you have now? Like, how do you get there? Is it trial and error? Is it based off? How do you define the segments? How did that all kind of come to be?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, a lot of thought went into it, and it took a while, trust me. But I mean, we really looked at it from every angle. We looked at it from, just anecdotal feedback from our team around, these are the things that we know we do with every customer. And then what we looked to do was take a standard approach, but make it scalable. So, allow for added complexity or more forms or, things like that, but within the same general approach so that we could, we could grow with our customers so that we could set them up to be able to replicate some of the processes they might have already been using, but not make it, a completely custom approach. My experience over the years, working with customers in success and onboarding is that, Oftentimes, if you go to them and say, what do you need? Or what are your success metrics or things like that, they look back at you and say, I don't know, you tell me. That's really the approach that we wanted to take, was to be the expert and the thought leader and help them get off the ground, and then let them tell us what's really important to layer on top of that.
And you said kind of one of your objectives was to kind of shorten your time to value. Now, for each of the 4 different packages, do you have a similar time to value in each of the packages, even though some are much more complex, or is it different?
I mean, it varies a little bit. There are some nuances to the different packages that might take one longer to get to a point where you can actually be hands-on if you need to migrate in data or things like that. But again, it's about looking at the complexity of each project and then hitting that milestone that we can say, yes, we've gotten to this point, and then what else can we build on top of this, or what else do we need to do at that point?
And do you have a measurement in place for first time to value with a CSAT or something like that you're looking at that point?
We're actually just implementing a CSAT process, which I'm really excited about. We automate it through our onboarding tool, Rocket Lane, where we're going to touch our customers at a few different points during the onboarding process. Obviously, for that quick start package, we'll probably just hit them once, but for the others, we'll hit at certain milestones so that we're getting that feedback in real time, and we know, we're hitting the mark, we're making the right progress. And having the tool, the platform for onboarding as well, helps us to know that we're staying on track, and that we're actually getting there in the time frame set forth, because it allows us to build really great project plans and things like that.
That's great.
So Melissa, one question I have, and this is all great stuff, and so as you start to talk to your clients, and I like you said, they don't always know what their success metrics are, what to expect, right? And so you're the experts. But as you're starting to talk to them about the right bundle or the right package to get into and how to onboard, I found sometimes the clients, that first time the value maybe isn't as pressing for maybe as the onboarding team and their resources, right? Like they have the project, and getting it in, there's not a tight time frame. And so how do you guys kind of go about like making sure the client, you guys are on the same page in terms of timing, expectations, what's needed on both sides? I'm curious kind of how your team navigates that.
Yeah, that's another big change that I made over the course of the last year and a half. Just really honestly, there was a little bit of a disconnect from, kind of that pre-sale process to, okay, now onboarding will take you and figure out what you need. So we actually took one of the leaders of our onboarding team and integrated them into the sales process. So she's a direct liaison to the customer there, and she joins at a specific point in the sales process where they're just starting to scope, what does the onboarding look like, so that she can both hear what the customer cares about, what's important to them, but also help set the right expectations around, timeline and, resource requirements from their side and things like that. So we start having that conversation really early on. And then we start to work through that together so that we stay on that same page from very, very early all the way through the process.
Yeah, and you said that's the onboarding person you're putting into that role early in the process?
Yeah, it's one of the leaders of our onboarding team. So it's worked really well.
And so I'm actually on the other side. So as you drive through the onboarding process and you're getting closer to transition into steady state, at what point are you bringing CSM into the process, or I'm assuming it doesn't stay with the onboarding team?
It doesn't. Yeah, we definitely transition over from onboarding to the CSM, and we the great thing is, because of the tools and the platforms that we've invested in, we have complete transparency. So I talked about, we use Salesforce in the sales process, we use Rocket Lane in the onboarding process, and we use Gainsight in the customer success process. And all those tools talk to each other. So the data is flowing through every step of the way. So the CSMs will be able to see exactly what was discussed in the sales process and then what happened in onboarding. But there is a point where, during, as we're getting closer to the end of the onboarding process, where we pull in the CSM and make sure that that relationship's solid, that they have all the information they need, that we do a joint call where we, lay out, our understanding of what their goals are, what we've done up to this point, and everything. I'm really, really determined to not allow a bad handoff to happen. That's something that I've been party to over the years, and I really struggle with that. So it's really important to me that we bridge that gap really effectively.
Do you have a feedback loop kind of from the steady state back to the onboarding team and kind of, I guess, the other way as well, for when, hey, we're on board, we're operational, and we see these issues coming out. How do we avoid them by changing our onboarding process to address them early before they become issues?
100%. I mean, the great thing about having, both of the teams under my organization is that we have a really tight-knit team, and they talk all the time. So that open line of communication is always there. And I think that doesn't just, apply to onboarding. It applies to the support team and the product team and, all of the different parts that actually touch the customer experience. And I think what's really beneficial is the ability for our customers to go live and have their CSM, but then being able to come back and they need an additional service of some type or some additional functionality built into their platform. It goes right back to those same resources on the onboarding team, and they help deliver on those as well. So with our platform, there's a lot of that kind of back and forth a bit so that both teams stay really involved in the relationship.
Yeah. Melissa, you mentioned a couple of softwares you use, Gainsight and Rocket Lane. I'm not super familiar with Rocket Lane. I'm curious, for the onboarding, what system are you using? Because a challenge I hear commonly is capacity planning, right? Like, so you have all these people working, engineers, project managers, all these people touching it. And so curious kind of how you manage utilization, capacity, and are there certain tools you're using to kind of manage that time?
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked that because it's been a huge focus for us over the course of the last year. Really, honestly, when I came in, there was no focus on that really at all. And, we started to realize we were definitely underwater a bit with the way we were doing things. And so Rocket Lane was a real key to that. Not going to lie, we still use spreadsheets to some extent, but we have all that data in Rocket Lane where it shows us that utilization rate on an ongoing basis. So, as the team logs their projects in there, we can see by each person how many hours they have available, how many hours they're spending on each project. There's a scope for each project. So we measure, are we staying within scope? Are we starting to veer over scope? Things like that. So, when we talk about our metrics, utilization rate is absolutely one of the top things that we track, along with that kind of in scope versus out of scope metric as well.
And for Fluxx, is onboarding a professional services engagement? Is it billable?
It is, yes. That's why that, kind of productivity metric is so important.
Yeah. And Melissa, on the in-scope, out-of-scope you just talked about, talk a little bit about that. Like, how do you track that? How do you determine, and you say in-scope, just to make sure I'm clear, what was in-scope maybe from the original statement of work versus what ends up coming? Because I know you talked about, maybe we talked a little bit about the handoff from onboarding to customer success, but another challenge I hear a lot of people say is, it goes from sales to onboarding and, the license types aren't right, or like there's all these, or they didn't get this widget, which they need this widget. We didn't, and I know you talked about including people, someone from onboarding into the sales process, and that may have relieved that, but I'm curious about that, how you measure sort of the in-scope versus out-of-scope metric.
Yeah, it's, again, having that person involved in the sales process has definitely really helped that, which is great. No offense to the sales teams, they do a great job positioning it, but just having that person who really understands the process and can dig deeper to make sure we're fully aligned is so important. But yes, it's exactly that. I mean, we have a detailed statement of work that, lists out everything that's going to be done. And if we're in the onboarding process and, a customer really needs an extra form built or something done differently, then we have that conversation with them. And, we explain that was not part of the original scope. And if we need to do a change order to get that added, we can. And I think it's just really creating that discipline with the team to kind of set some guardrails. But customers understand it. I mean, they're great about it because we've done such a great job building out that detailed scope to begin with. And, before we probably weren't so great about it. And when a customer needed something extra, we were saying, okay, sure, we'll do it. And that's what was driving us out of scope. And, so I think, again, discipline's the key, and the teams really learn to do that in a way that's very customer centric and very customer friendly, but still kind of keeping the overall margins close at mind.
Yeah, it's interesting. Just personal experience transitioning a team from just always saying, okay, yeah, we'll do it, to having the discussions that are a little bit harder to have. But honestly, once you start having them, they're not as hard. Customers expect it. They know what's in the agreement. They look, sometimes the customer's like, look, there was no reason for me to expect that this should have been a separate scope. And you have to have that discussion, and that's okay. And sometimes that is the case. And then other times customers are like, okay, yeah, I see this is a redesign from what you guys have. We'll change it.
Of course.
And it's an important, it's a very important point for CSMs and onboarding teams and everybody to understand and get used to, because once you get used to it, it's an easy conversation.
Yeah, I say that to my teams all the time, especially my CSM team, because they own revenue responsibility as well for renewals, additional services and add-ons, upsells. They hold it all, and making it really clear that we did that for a reason, because they're working with the customers every day. And if you're having all the right conversations, those types of things should happen very naturally. And it shouldn't be hard, because you're doing the right thing for the customer. You're not just, stressed out about trying to quote them for something. So
exactly.
It's really key.
Melissa, if you look at kind of good onboarding experience and maybe some ones that have gone off the rails a little bit, is there something in there that says, hey, like this can cause an onboarding experience to really go in the wrong direction? Is there, like, what in your opinion causes a great onboarding experience, and what are maybe some flags to say, oh, if this happens, we could be going down the wrong path?
Sure. We've definitely had some of those. I can talk from experience, but those are, of course, the things we've been trying to solve for over the last year. I would say a couple of things. One is the misaligned expectations or understanding. So, back to that, like setting the expectations up front very early, getting on the same page, and, driving that through is absolutely key. I think another thing is ensuring, and this kind of goes along with expectations, but ensuring the customers are really ready, that they have the right people, they understand their processes, things like that to contribute to the onboarding. Because as everyone knows, it's a partnership. It's not just us coming in and doing something for them. It's, especially with our platform, again, because it's very configurable, it's a real opportunity for us to work together, and having them just as committed and engaged as we are is critically important. So we often have that part of the conversation early on too. And then probably the third thing is what I spoke about a minute ago. Again, it's just that discipline, that ability to hold yourself accountable as the onboarding or implementation specialist, to stay on track, to stay tight with your project plan, to be thoughtful about your metrics and your scope and your margin and all of the things that we're tracking. And that's also something that I really put out there, is transparency and accountability for those metrics. Oftentimes I think companies, measure metrics at the highest levels, but the people on the ground don't really understand what the metrics are or how they're being measured or whatever else. And, having the tools to let them hold themselves accountable along the way is really critical.
Yeah. And one other thing I'm sure that I've seen is communication, and it's kind of what goes into what you're saying, but that communication, right? When bad news comes, making sure you communicate it early and often. and making sure that's going up, down, across, making sure everybody understands where the scenario is.
Yeah.
So I'm going to transition the conversation a little bit from a perspective of AI. Where are you using it? I know Gainstate's got some pretty new technology, AI technology built in, and I think probably some of your other tools are starting to go that direction. Where are you seeing usefulness for it within the onboarding process?
Yeah, I think we haven't dabbled too far yet, but the big thing for us has been really with just helping with general kind of templates, communication, operationalizing that stuff so that it makes us even more efficient to help the team get their all their messages and communications out. Within the context of our platform, we actually, our onboarding team actually writes some code and things like that at times. It's that type of product, and they're actually leveraging some AI to help them with that piece of it as well, which is a really interesting use case. And I think just across the board, our customer success team is absolutely leveraging it for a lot of automated communications. We're really focused on getting more proactive with our customers, which is a growth area for us. When I came in, we had kind of fallen a little bit into that reactive mode, and so leveraging Gainsight, to help us look at the data, build the right communication templates to ensure that we're communicating with our customers in the right ways at the right times is something that's really important to us as well.
I'm just wondering, when you say that you've got your onboarding team writing some code with it, are they using GitHub Copilot, or are they using ChatGPT type stuff?
And right now we're doing ChatGPT. They just released their enterprise version, so we've just gotten our whole team on that. So it's just a really new venture for us, but we're excited to be investing in that as a company.
It's cool.
Yeah, I like it. Even the simplest thing, like recapping the meeting and sending me the meeting summaries and the next step, is like a game changer, right? Like, it's so simple. Like, it's like, how did I do this a year ago without ChatGPT? It takes me 2 seconds now. So
I literally wrote a job description the other day using ChatGPT, and that used to be such a grueling thing to have to sit down and think through all the requirements for a job description. It was done in seconds. So.
It's amazing, isn't it? And onboarding is, we're getting into we're about to get into, I think, Melissa, the hard question, these rapid fire questions, which, but onboarding is it's like, when it goes well, it's like, from a client perspective and it's a team that's delivering, I think it's like the greatest thing, right? Like, it is just like, it's so rewarding, and it's like you see the client getting value, but like, it's honestly like a 180. When things can go off the rail, it causes so much stress. And I think a lot about what you talked about today. I love the idea of incorporating someone early in that late stage sales process, right? I love that sort of segue. And just the way your team is I love the segments as well, right? Like, it's not a one size fits all approach, and really tailoring that. And probably, I'm sure you guys are continually analyzing that and assessing, like, are these still the right segments? Do we need 5 segments, 3 segments? Like, how that goes, right?
Absolutely key. We started with 3. We've already gone to 4 just in the first year. And we are committed. We said from day one, you guys asked, like, how did we decide what goes in each one? We knew it wasn't, wasn't a perfect science, and that we committed we would be iterating, every step of the way. Every single implementation, we do a retro and review. What did we miss here? What should we change? So really important. And I agree with you. I've always said, 20 years I've been working in this space, and effective onboarding is a game changer for the long-term relationship. Getting a customer started off really strong, really just, it sets the tone, it sets the pace. And we talk a lot about long-term success in our company. And, I think this is obviously the first step to driving that.
Yeah, that's right. So, Kevin, I don't know if you have any other questions, or Melissa, anything we didn't touch on in terms of onboarding that we should discuss.
No, I don't think so. We had most of the nuts and bolts of it. I would just stress that, building out this process, the key is really getting, buy-in from the very top and pushing that all the way through. And I fortunately have that. And I think anytime you're transforming, that's really key, and it's worked for us.
Along those lines, when you did you know you were going to have that coming into the organization? Like, did you establish that up front?
We did. Yeah, it was one of the most important things to me when I was making my last job move. Was ensuring that there was strong support and leadership and buy-in from the very beginning, because I've done this for a lot of years. I know what works, but being empowered to make those things happen is incredibly important. And, our CEO is 100% on board, and even all the way up to our board level, they're very engaged and very supportive. So definitely would recommend anyone who's out there in the space looking for a job, make that a top priority.
Yeah, that makes sense. Kev, you wanna lead us off with the rapid fire? Yeah, let's go.
Right. You ready for this?
Sure.
All right. Which one hobby you have
enthusiasm coming through with the
Which one hobby you have outside of work that helps you unwind?
Traveling.
Cool. So what's the last place you went, and one place that you haven't been that you'd like to go?
I went to Italy back in the fall. My son was studying abroad, so I had the chance to go over and spend some time with him. And I really want to go, and I've been to a lot of crazy corners of the earth, but I've never been to Hawaii. So that's next on my list.
Oh, nice. Early bird or night owl?
Night owl, 100%.
Favorite book?
Oh gosh, that's hard. I've been reading so many books lately, mostly work stuff. I'm actually reading Lead It Like Lasso right now, which I love.
Oh, nice.
Great book.
Very cool. And last question, where can our audience find you and learn more from you moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely find me on LinkedIn. I would love for anyone to connect with me. A passion that I have is coaching and mentoring and sharing all about customer success. Like I said, I've been doing it for over 20 years. I always kind of joke that I was doing customer success before customer success was even a thing. So feel like I have a lot to share there. Would love to connect with anyone who's interested in talking about onboarding or success, or really anything that follows on with it. And you can find, our company at Fluxx.io. We have a great podcast as well. So I hope anyone who's interested in learning more about Fluxx and what we're doing in the philanthropy space will check us out.
Yeah,
cool.
That's great.
Roman, you want to take us out?
Yeah. I mean, you can check out Melissa on LinkedIn at Melissa-Caldwell. Like I said, Fluxx, Fluxx.io. And the podcast, I love the podcast name, Untapped Philanthropy. So Melissa, thanks so much for joining us. We really enjoyed this discussion. And that's a wrap for this episode of the Customer Success Playbook. We hope you found our conversation insightful and are ready to take your onboarding to the next level. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, comment, and share with your friends and colleagues. You can find Kevin and myself on LinkedIn as well, at Roman Trebon and at Kevin Metzger. We also have a Customer Success Playbook LinkedIn page, so check us out there. Our website is customersuccessplaybook.ai. You can sign up for our newsletter, connect and share articles that we have on there, blog posts, etc. And if you have any suggestions for future topics and guests, please reach out and let us know. And as always, thanks for listening.
Keep on playing.